Hello and welcome to the Phones podcast, streaming live on Wednesday, the 12th of May. And joining me tonight is Ed Selley.
I'm not kidding. It's like an orange on a toothpick.
Kaz Harlow.
Give your mother a kiss or kick your teeth in.
And Steve Withers.
My name is John Johnson, but everyone here calls me Vicky.
Welcome, Vicky, and welcome everybody else along to the podcast. We are streaming live yet again on a Wednesday evening, but things are going to change up when we get to June, which hopefully will come nice and quickly so I can get my... I'm getting impatient now.
Yeah.
So yes, we are changing things up. We are going to move the movies podcast to the first Wednesday of the month, and that will start at 7 p.m. on an evening. And then the rest of the month, you'll have the weekly podcast on a Wednesday night. Reason for that is obviously having two podcasts in a week was just a little bit too much, I think, for everybody to find the time to sit down.
Too much of a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to say that, Steve, but yeah, you big
So
it
basically, we've just gone back to the way things used to be, haven't we?
Movies at 7:30, yeah, Phil?
Yeah, 7:30.
Yeah.
Because we used to do a movies podcast one week, then next week it was a games podcast, then it was a hard rock podcast.
Yeah.
and then it was me and Phil made some crap up for the last week of the month because we couldn't think of it.
And that's where I came in.
Ed, fill half an hour.
Ramble.
We used to do, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we're going to change it up. The movies podcast is going to have its own week. So you can take your time and listen to what the guys.
I get a week off, and I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, we all get a week off, and apart from the movies guys. But yeah, you can tune in, listen to everything that they're talking about movie-wise, as well as AV, because obviously it's still an AV podcast. So Kaz and Simon will hopefully have had their hands on some discs to talk about as well, and lots of things.
Be a pretty crap movies podcast.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be more nostalgia over the summer because apart from one or two tentpole movies, there ain't a lot coming. So
I'm sorry, there's still plenty of nostalgia to be mined. Let's mine away.
I think we're talking zombies. That's the
you
next
might think
one.
that, Phil, but my bank balance would probably disagree.
we're
always find something to buy.
Well, you can, yeah. It doesn't mean it's
Loads
good.
No,
Does
that's
it?
very true.
Steve, completionist Withers.
Yeah. Right, so what's been happening this week? Well, I've still got the LG C1 behind me. We're going to talk about that in a little while on the podcast. I've still got 3 boxes that say Arkham on the side. They have, well,
So they haven't collected them then.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll come and collect them soon. And I've got a JBL.
Why have you got 3 boxes? You reviewed 2 things.
Well, yeah, but amplifier as well. So there was a PS720 processor and then the AVR20. So yeah, and then on the other side, can never figure out which way I need to go. But on the other side, at the back there is a box from Hisense. It's a new TV from them, A7G. So it's the one just below their flagship TVs. So, and I had a meeting with Hisense this week and was given all the lineup for the year. So we will be hopefully getting them on the podcast soon to talk about what's coming up this year and product wise and so on. Because, it's always quality for the money. So I'm looking forward to reviewing that TV actually. So that's me. That's what I've been doing. Not a lot else. I've been sitting waiting impatiently for my car because it's so close now. I'm just, and then the boat, which was supposed to arrive at Liverpool, stopped outside the port and then decided it was going to Hamburg instead. So,
To be honest, I mean, given the choice between those two.
Yeah, I'd go to Hamburg as well.
Yeah,
but it's added another week before it'll possibly land in the UK. And then obviously
in that lovely salty air.
Yeah, so then it needs to get on a transporter and to the dealer, and then it needs to be prepped. So it'll probably be the end of the month now. So yeah, but I'm getting impatient.
Well, yes, but good things come to those that wait, and all the rest of it. Besides, if you by the end of June, both of your arms might work, which will make driving it an awful lot easier.
I had this side. I think people know if they're regular listeners that I've had a frozen shoulder on this side for a number of months now. Kaz had it in the past and used to give me some exercises, but I've yet to get the tennis ball to do that. But I had my second jab yesterday, which I was very pleased about and very grateful for. But I woke up this morning and I can hardly use this arm, my right arm, and it's incredible pain. And I've had paracetamol and all sorts, and it's just not going away. So hopefully it'll be gone by tomorrow when I get up. But
which one was it that you got?
Pfizer.
Pfizer.
Yeah, so the second dose of Pfizer. So yeah, 2 weeks and I'll be invincible until the next variant comes along.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm very grateful that I got that. So that's what I've been up to.
Really shouldn't have just tempted fate there, Phil.
Well,
what
can you do?
What are you going to do?
Die
Ed,
mainly.
Ed, you're obviously going to buy more shoes by the looks of things.
Yeah, I did say after the last pair, didn't it, that I was done, but then these hoved into view. So yeah.
Have you completed the spectrum yet?
Pretty much. I mean, I had tentatively believed the maroon ones I had constituted a decent red, but then I saw these ones, and I felt that I needed a pair of red trainers.
For anybody listening and not watching the
that's absolutely fair. It's a pair of Adidas jeans trainers in a very, very vivid red. I'll do the standard habit of mine when they turn up of switching the red laces for black, so they actually match the stripe on the side of the trainer.
You don't have to wear them with jeans. If you were Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg, you could wear them with a silver suit.
Oh no, I intend to rock them with chinos, with cargo trousers. I'm not. But the Adidas jeans is actually one of the longer running of the Adidas Classics line. Although I haven't owned a pair in quite a long time. So yeah, I've done that. I've been working on some exclusives and some new stuff for AV Forums. One of which I still can't talk about. No, one of which I can't talk about. One of which I can. I'm ashamed to say that due to just lots and lots of things happening at the same time, the Sennheiser IE900s, there is a news story up about them. I have a pair here, and there will be a review of them going up live as soon as I can actually get it all together. Because Sennheiser very kindly sent a pair ahead of time. So as soon as I've dotted some I's and crosses some T's, that will be ready to go up onto the site. Because for lots of different reasons, obviously with the news that Sennheiser has been sold successfully, is this the end of an era? If it is, then it's quite an ending. More of which later on. There's another product here I still can't tell you about, and some other exciting things showed up today. So I've been waist deep in quality shiz. I believe. Well, I know, but you don't need to worry because I haven't drunk that much yet. So that's what I've been up to. It's been super busy, and I'm looking forward to being able to sit in a pub soon as well. So that's.
I just think you should be very, very careful, Ed, because if anything would happen to you and you were to sadly die, the Adidas share price will probably drop significantly.
I have to admit, someone at Adidas has absolutely got me down pat. It's like, right, what's that track going to buy next? Right, what about that one? Yes, done.
Well,
and then yeah.
What's it like browsing the internet? I'm sure you'll be getting served loads of adverts of Adidas.
Oh God, whenever I turn the forums on, there's no hi-fi advertising. It's just wall-to-wall tunes.
Trainers, yeah.
Well, at least it's working. The target.
No, it's absolutely working brilliantly. I mean, it's not working brilliantly for my bank account, but it's working brilliantly. So targeted advertising is doing fantastically.
What scares me is when I see a targeted advert at me, and I'm absolutely positive I hadn't searched for it. I just mentioned it within the vicinity of Alexa, and suddenly it's popping up, and I think, bloody hell.
Yeah. No, well, it's not just Alexa. If you've got your phone next to you, it's got Siri on, isn't it? So, yeah. Kaz, what have you been up to?
Well, I'm a year older, I guess. That's why I missed the last podcast.
Oh, belated happy birthday!
Well done. So, what's it feel like being 50?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd be actually 51 according to Steve's maths. I was 50 last year, wasn't I, Steve? So,
what are you talking about?
The last time it was my birthday, you were convinced I was 50. You were like the only person convinced, and Phil did that exact laugh. Yeah. So yeah, it's like, but no, I'm still not there. I'm approaching it, but as slow as
still at a respectful distance.
Yeah.
You know, how old are
you? 43.
Jeez, must have been tough, isn't it?
So there's the man who looks like he's stuck his head in an open
listen, exactly what you said last year.
There's one advantage to going bald in your 20s, and that's like basically after that you don't really change.
So yeah. So it was another year where I was painfully reminded that that I'm too old and have kids, so therefore nothing at all is going to be about me. So my presents involved like a massive Spider-Man doll, and a massive Superman doll, and both of them my son
Did you
just
buy these for
grabbed.
yourself?
No, I got
Yeah.
given them.
Is that who's looming over your shoulder?
I got no. That's the Eastwood caricature from Rango.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, I couldn't find a good one, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly wallpaper, so I just picked him instead. But yeah, I got and my son claimed
Can
them
I just
straight
say
away.
that Timothy Oliphant does a very, very good
He
Eastwood
does.
impression in that film.
He does. He's phenomenal in it. Yeah, he's really good.
They should have got him to do the voice, to do the dialogue for the extra scenes in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly extended version, like they did with Lee Van Cleef, because
Yeah,
he was dead. At
he
that
wasn't
point,
around. Yeah. I mean, yes. Yeah. So that was. So for my birthday, I watched Extraction. Now,
Extraction's a good film, isn't it?
this was a fantastic film, and I tell you, it was. It's been a long time coming, because Tom reviewed it, and I promised myself I wouldn't watch it because it was the only good Netflix film in existence, and I'd given it to Tom to review. And I was so upset by the fact that I just refused to watch it. And then it was my birthday. It was like, what am I going to watch? I've seen everything. And
we realised that.
Yeah, and anything
we're aware
new,
of this.
Anything new I've either seen or isn't good. So, I saw Extraction on there and I was like, God, it's my birthday. I watch it. I loved it. It's a phenomenal movie.
It's a fantastic film.
Yeah, it's a really good movie.
That sort of long 10-minute single take action scene is just. I mean, I know it's obviously not a single take, but it looks like a single take. It is amazing because you don't realize it at first. You suddenly think, hang on, there hasn't been a cut for 10 minutes.
They've got to do another one. I had a
really
lot of fun with that. I enjoyed the setting. It was very jungle John Wick. Hemsworth was good, and even though it wasn't about character, he did get me with his little brief line about leaving his dying son to go back and join the army, volunteering. I thought that was it was just.
And he got to use his own Aussie accent for once.
Yeah, he was. I thought he was really good in it. I thought it was a really well put together action movie. Russo brothers, wasn't it? So shouldn't
they produced it, right? Is that right?
Yeah, they did, but it was enough to.
So have you not seen The Mitchells versus the Machines yet? Because that's another good Netflix film.
No, I have. Yeah, I didn't. I mean, nowadays I did. I think I saw it before Tom saw it, and he was covering it, and I absolutely loved it. And I told him he had to give it a 10, but he didn't listen. Yeah, I watched it. The whole family adored it. It was a lot of fun, and I thought it had the Pixar magic for a non-Pixar movie.
Well, it's Lord and Miller. I mean, it's a classic Lord and Miller film, and they make good films. If only, I mean, I just wish they'd been allowed to make the Solo movie because it would have been interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
as opposed to just mediocre and workmanlike.
Did I do the Phil Grant joke last? I think I did, Linda.
Yeah, you did.
And
you did.
Peggy, yeah.
Mitchell brothers.
The Mitchell brothers versus the Machines.
Yeah. Right, Steve.
I'd quite like to see.
I did want to ask you, Steve, because I know you covered it last month. What final verdict on Good, the Bad, and the Ugly 4K?
I thought we were going to do this at the end.
Yeah, I thought we were doing this at the end.
No, because you covered it last time. Order. I took it out. Or you can put it back.
Did you?
Oh,
taking stuff out. I don't know you're taking it out.
You're right. I took it out and then I put it in as a topic to discuss with Steve. Okay. Obviously, I had no faith we'd get there. I'm ignoring my own running order. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I'll answer that question at the end.
Stick around.
Well, so if you want to know, you got to watch this whole podcast and listen to this whole podcast to find out what I think.
I don't think. Well, people will just switch off and come back at 8:30.
If only the podcast had HDR.
Yeah. Oh hell no! Right, Steve, what have you been up
to? Yesterday, a man knocked at my door, and
I like when
you know in Hot Fuzz there's that farmer that no one can understand.
Yeah,
and there's that copper that works at the police station that they take with them because he's the only person that can understand. They understand whether no one else can understand a word they're saying. Yeah, that's who turned up at my front door, He was a guy that does trees, basically cuts down trees and trims trees and stuff. I'm not going to say tree surgeon because I'm pretty sure he's just some old chancer in a van with a chainsaw and a ladder. But anyway, I've got some trees around my property that had been growing into power cables and telephone lines. And for a while now, I think I really need to get the tops of those trees cut off, otherwise they could bring them down. And but you talk to a proper tree surgeon, they're bloody expensive. Anyway, this guy's like, I think he said he'll do it for like a certain amount of money. And I said, oh, off you go then. So a couple of blokes came out the back of the van, ladders, long poles, chainsaws all over the shop. The next thing I know, all these trees are cut down. And I'll tell you what, the amount of sunlight I've had in the garden today, thanks to that, is fantastic. So not only is it now safer, and I'm not likely to get killed by a falling power cable, but also much more sunlight. So,
excellent. Well, that's
well spent. But I still don't know what he was talking. I mean, he started talking to my neighbour. I'm trying to get some work off him, and afterwards I said to my neighbour, did you understand a word you were saying?
Was it like Hot Fuzz, where they had to have...
That's what I just said at the beginning. It was it was exactly like Hot Fuzz. It was exactly like it. He was talking and talking, and I'm thinking, what? And I grew up in the West Country, and even I was like...
That sounds like the people from Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
It's either that or
Hot Fuzz, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
But...
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about the gear that you've been looking at in the next section, so we'll save that.
I'm not bothering talking about it now.
Yeah. Good. Right. So let's move on to competitions. What can people win, Kaz?
Sure, you can still win the Lithe Audio Pro Series all-in-one seating speaker kit worth $599. That closes June the 4th, so we got almost a month on that. You can also win a bunch of Blu-ray competitions, including that Battle Royale 5-disc limited edition Blu-ray box set. Patreon exclusive, regular competitions for Justice Society World War II on Blu-ray, 800 limited edition Blu-ray, and Criterion's May titles on Blu-ray. I should be adding some more. It's been a little thin on the ground recently, but we'll have some more in and some more Patreon exclusives. All competitions open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK. Head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter. And we got a bunch of previous competition winners. Matt WB won copies of the Patreon exclusive Catch Us If You Can for Blu-ray Studio Canal musical comedy box set. Doc won the podcast exclusive Roald and Beatrix Blu-ray. Sleepy won a copy of Journey of a Lifetime on Blu-ray. Manjit won a copy of Frightened City on Blu-ray, and Base 13 won a copy of Austin Powers Collector's Edition on Blu-ray. And stay tuned for a chance to win a 2-movie box set of the Craft and Blumhouse's Craft Legacy on Blu-ray, which is the podcast exclusive. We'll do the competition question at the end, and just so anyone who's entered it knows, none of you got it right. 0%, no point.
Yeah, you should really wait for the question. It does help when you do that. Right, okay. So we're caught up with competitions and winners. We'll be back in a sec with hardware.
If you'd like to support the AV Forums podcast on a regular basis, then why not become a patron? Head over to patreon.com/AV Forums to sign up. You can also make a one-off donation through the Super Chat or via streamlabs.com/AV Forums. All donations help us to improve the website and the podcasts. Thank you to all our supporters.
Okay, so we've got a new patron. Kaz, I understand he's left a comment, so why don't you tell us who it is and what the comment was?
Yes, it's apologies if I pronounce it wrong. It's Manjit Bale, and his comment, not that he said I could read it out, but I'm going to read it out anyway, Manjit. He said, "You guys are really great. Highlights of my week listening to the podcast, and now we have the extra movies one too. It's like listening into my mates. Even if I have ended up watching Forged in Fire as a result."
Well, I mean,
Good
come
man.
on. If
Well,
that's the
quality TV right there.
on that note, actually, someone messaged me on Instagram. I'm terribly sorry, I've forgotten your name. It's saying I've sat down to read Red Storm Rising for the first time. I apologise for that as well. But it come on, it's quite. I mean, it might be the McDonald's of fiction, but it's quite the read. So.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Manjit. That really is appreciated. Thanks for your donation and becoming a patron. And of course, if you want to be a patron, then sign up, because you will be getting lots of little tidbits here and there when we think of them. So
yeah,
I think
and
we
of
should
course,
give a quick shout. Sorry,
of course, merch. You can get your merch. You get your discount. Steve's got one as well. He's got a mug.
I'm doing a Magritte. This is not a pipe.
This is a mug.
Very high-end gag for you there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get your discount if you become a patron for your.
Can I just say it is, and I'm not simply saying this because I now have one. It is a bloody lovely mug. Really is it's a fine.
Mugs
and
go.
attractive
It's a
thing.
fine mug, dishwasher proof, microwave proof, and as I've discovered already.
But it's not. I was more pointing to the fact that actually I think it's a quite an elegant use of our logo and
simplistic
design.
and minimalist. Sorry, not simplistic. Minimalist in its design, and I like it. Yeah.
Well, AV Forums is simplistic, isn't it?
Good capacity as well. You can easily.
What, when we're doing Magritte gags? Come on.
We are working at multiple levels.
Yeah,
some levels I'm not even aware of. So yeah.
Sorry, I was
get match. Yeah,
going to say. Just wanted to say a quick shout out to Herne Roldan Gutierrez, who's watching in Colombia. He's written his chat in Spanish, so I hope to God he does speak English, because that's why this could be a really boring podcast for him.
Just what
hola,
poor idiot.
Hola.
Well, I think we've got everything covered. We're now a shopping channel as well, so there you go. Yeah.
Oh, Stevie DR has a question for you, Steve. Was it like Hot Fuzz?
Yeah, I saw that, but chose to ignore it because I don't think it's funny on the third time you try it.
It's lucky that's the
I'm not sure Ed was Ed actually doing a gag, or had you just forgotten I'd mentioned it?
I wasn't paying attention.
Steve,
you come in here and I get them trees down.
Stevie was doing a Steve. That's what
I was.
He wasn't paying attention.
Any attention.
No,
I'm the center of attention.
I was proving beyond reasonable doubt that men cannot multitask. What more can you ask for? Hypothesis proved.
Yeah.
In case anyone's wondering what keeps popping behind my head, it's the cat. The background is confused where my jumper ends and the cat begins. I don't have an enormous black goiter, so I just needed to make that abundantly clear. So yes,
not yet, at least.
No.
Shall we do some podcasting and actually talk about some useful stuff?
Suppose. All right.
Okay. Right. So Cambridge Audio DacMagic 200M. What is it, Ed, and why have you been looking at it?
Right. As the name suggests, this is a digital to analog converter, but it's the first from Cambridge Audio in quite a while. And I thought it was worth covering for two reasons. The first is that even though he's long since forgotten he did it, Steve wrote an incredibly thorough review of the original DacMagic, which you can still read on the forums.
I do remember reviewing that, actually. It was very good.
Yes, it was. And it remains actually very good. So I thought it was worth having a look at what Cambridge Audio had done to improve on it. And one of those things is quite notable because it's the first Cambridge Audio product to support MQA. Which I have to say, from Cambridge Audio's perspective, I didn't see coming. But nevertheless, they have sorted the licensing, paid the money, and the 200M, if you stream title to it directly, is now able to do full MQA unpack and rendering. If you're not using MQA, it's still a bloody good DAC. The feature set is not as complicated as it looks on the back panel, because if you look at the back panel, you'll see two opticals and two coaxial inputs alongside a USB connection and a Bluetooth connection. You can only use one of those two connection sets on each input, so it will auto detect if you're using coaxial or optical. So it will only auto detect between one of those connection settings. Nevertheless, that's still a reasonable set of functionality. The Bluetooth used to be a cost option. Now it's on board. It's still a very good headphone amplifier. It can still be used as a preamplifier, and it can be used as a line level DAC. The biggest frustration, I'll get it out the way nice and quickly, is that it has exactly the same problem that Steve reported when he reviewed the DacMagic. It has no remote control. So if you are planning on using it as a preamp, and it is a very good preamp, you need to have it at arm's length because it's simply quite frustrating to use in any other way. If you're looking to use it as a line level DAC, however, that's not an issue, and you can switch the volume control out, and it performs extremely well as a line level. That's how a lot of the testing was done. It's an interesting step up from the very affordable DACs that I've looked at in the not too distant past, the IFI Audio Zen DAC and the Topping E30. You do get more bang for your buck, especially if you can use it over the balance connectors. But even if you can't, there are just improvements in the bottom end and some other sort of detail things, but you get more functionality. It's beautifully made. If you are planning on mixing between output via the back and headphone use, I mean, there's a headphone amplifier. It is a step forward over the Zen DAC, which is good. It is astonishing for 140 quid, but you can get more in the way of performance. As I say, I do feel that Cambridge Audio has missed a bit of an opportunity by not equipping it with a remote control, because that would have brought
Especially
it
after they told them last time.
Well, and not only that, Steve, you weren't the only person that flagged this up, but
Sure
they clearly didn't want to cannibalize sales of devices that do. That's their decision. We have to go with it. Nevertheless, this is a very, very good product. And even if you have no interest in MQA, and I'll be honest, it's not really high on my list of things that I get that het up about, it's still a very fine product, and you don't need to concern yourself that anything else is in any way impinged by the presence of MQA. The only thing I suppose it's worthy of note is that Cambridge Audio is switching from offering black and silver finishes of things to this sort of dark silver finish, which doesn't look necessarily out of place with either. Well, it's yeah. I did my best. Don't be
dark silvers. Go for it.
Great.
Yeah,
it's grey.
But nevertheless, it looks okay. But in the original DacMagic Plus was available in both black and silver, so it did more closely match systems if that sort of thing is important to you. Nevertheless, it is an extremely good product. It's well worth a listen. And if you are mixing for headphone use, especially, it really is something that you need to check out.
Okay, and the review will be live probably over the weekend, if not into early next week. So keep an eye on the homepage for that one if you're interested in it. Coming up very soon on AV Forums, right? So let's move over to Steve. So Steve, you got an interesting product that came in this week.
I have.
And I'm getting mine on the 18th. So I've gone for the processor. You're looking at the AVR. So what is it?
Yes, it's the JBL Synthesis SDR-35 AVR, which has been it's been a bit oversold on the promotion for this podcast, because it says review, and it won't be a full review because I only installed it yesterday. But I can give you my first impressions of it. Now, it's not exactly a secret that it's largely based on the AVR-30 from Arcam. And that's pretty obvious if you look at the back of it. It does look quite different from the front, though. From the front, it looks it's
very
taking cribbing off of Lindor's song sheet, I think.
Lindorf, well, it's not exactly a surprise move, is it? If they're the
not the only ones either.
Yeah.
The reason I only installed this yesterday was because before that I had an Anthem MRX 740 in there, and they've also been pinching design keys from Lindor. So the I quite like this design, this front panel compared to the Arcam. I've got to say that the Arcam, sorry, my screen has just gone dead. Dead.
You're going to have to do this off the top of your head then, Steve.
No. Well, yes, but I was about to read out.
Nope. Oh, Steve's gone all together there, so...
I love the way that he knocked himself down to 5'3" and then disappeared. It was
He's down there somewhere, I think.
Yeah, so yeah, he's looking at the AVRs.
Obviously, the tree surgeon didn't get them all.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that we just
so for those who are listening, Steve had issues there and then suddenly fell off his chair and he went blank. So God knows what happened there. Hopefully he'll be back.
Hopefully we'll get him back. So
hopefully he has done himself an injury. In the meantime, let me just mention that Sam Lloyd Gale has just donated £4.99. Thank you very much, Sam. It really is appreciated.
Thank you, sir.
He just wanted to show his appreciation of the podcast. Great entertainment and always informative. Well, if he says so, thank you very much, Sam. It is appreciated. Right, so why don't I move on to the LG C1 and give you my first thoughts on that. It's sitting behind me. It was delivered last Wednesday, and I've been going through the usual testing regime that I put these things through. So start out the box and use it for a few days and then move on. So just very, very, very briefly, going to go through this. Steve's seen it as well. So if Steve's back and he can hear me now.
Yeah, sorry about that. The only way I could get the I'm using my laptop camera, so the only way I can get it to get an image back was to close the laptop and open it up again.
Right.
And that
Okay.
cut me off.
So we've moved on to the LG. So we'll come back to the JBL. So,
Okay,
so the C1, you'll be surprised to learn that it's a replacement for the C10. And in those terms,
You might be curious as to why it's called a 1 when the previous one was called a 10. It's related 21 and 20. That's
it. Yeah. So that's the way they've done it. Even though it was CX, these X for
C10,
the 10. But anyway, the C1, it's basically a replacement for that, and it does the job very, very well. There are a few new things. So if you've seen my review for the G1, you'll already know that there's a new WebOS 6.0 system on there. Very much a love it or hate it system because it's gone from the launcher bar that used to be at the bottom of the screen, so you could keep watching what you were watching and have a bit browse through WebOS and have a look and see what was on the apps and so on. You didn't have to make any choices. You could still
also didn't lose the image. You still had the image.
Well, that's
and
what I'm saying.
sound.
You could still watch what you were watching and browse at the same time just to see if there's anything that's going to take your interest. Now, if you press the home button now, it stops everything and opens up a full screen. So that's annoying. There's 3 big blocks at the top of the image.
That's going to be adverts at some point, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's really annoying. Funny thing is, Steve had this TV in. He's reviewing it for some other clients of his, and I had the TV at the same time. So we've both been reviewing round about the same time and comparing notes and so on. So if you're wondering why Steve's button in there, it's because he's seen the same TV, not the same model. He's still got his review sample. So
well, it's the same model, but not the same unit.
Yeah. So we both had review units to look at and measure and so on. So one of the big things I've noticed on the internet, and I've actually put the question to Korea, and I'm waiting for an answer to come back from LG, is what panel is the C1 using? It's using the same processor as a G1. So what is the panel? Is it the new panel that has the new compounds in it? And if so, then what is the difference between the C1 and the G1? Because in terms of performance, in terms of brightness, there's not a great deal of difference when you actually do the measurements and so on. So in filmmaker mode, which is the most accurate out of the box for SDR and HDR, I got 688 nits on a 10% industry standard window, and full frame it was, or 100% full field, it was 138 nits. So not a great deal of difference when compared to the G1, which was around about the same figure for the 10%, although the G1 did have more on 100%. So the G1 was around about 158 nits, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. So there were some slight differences. One of the issues I found with the G1 was that filmmaker mode was slightly dimmer than cinema mode. So cinema HDR is usually accurate as well. It follows D65, so you don't have to go into filmmaker mode. The thing with cinema is it does have some processing switched on, which you have to go in and switch off if you don't want it, which makes filmmaker mode the easier mode, because if you go into filmmaker mode, everything is switched off. But even cinema on the G1, it was brighter than filmmaker mode. LG got in touch with me following my review and said that the engineers had looked at that and fixed it. And that was going on to a firmware update. Well, it's been updated because I measured exactly the same in filmmaker mode and cinema HDR. Cinema home HDR measured the same as well. So there was no difference. It was 688 to 690 to 700. Which is very, very small. You're not going to notice those differences.
I got a little bit over 700 on the one I had, 710.
So standard mode was, I think, 715, and that was the brightest, because Vivid was the same 715, and game mode was 715 as well, around about there. These are differences that you are not going to visibly see a step up in brightness between 680 and 715. You're just not going to see it. Our eyes don't see brightness that way. So you're not going to notice.
What was the peak brightness on the G1? G1.
On the G1, off the top of my head, it was about 680 to
so
700.
basically.
So it's basically the same. The only difference is full field, 100%, where the G1 is brighter. It's got a more
150
relaxed
against 140 or something like that.
It's so it's about 20 nits difference. But the main thing is, in terms of energy consumption, it's a lot less energy consumption than last year's TV to get the same brightness, basically. So there are improvements there. It's not where I think enthusiasts were expecting to see the brightness difference. It's not that, but it's got a more relaxed ABL. What I did notice on the C1, I don't know if you tried it with game mode as well, Steve, but the full field was a lot less. It was about 125. And that's because the ABL was a lot more aggressive. Because obviously, if you're in game mode, you're gaming, you're going to have HUDs or whatever up on screen, scoreboards or whatever. So there's more likelihood that you're going to get image retention. So there is a more aggressive
Makes
ABL. Basically, ABL is an automatic brightness limiter. If you don't know what the acronyms mean. So basically what it means is when the image gets brighter, it automatically starts to dim the image down, so it's combating things like image retention, which, like Steve says, it's that makes sense. Differences in the colors on the back. So the two models that we've looked at, the two different TVs that we looked at, were the 6LA versions. So they have white background. It's cosmetic. It's not there to dissipate heat, as somebody suggested in the comments. That's not the case. It's just a cosmetic change. Slight differences to the stand. Steve, you had fun looking through the retailer list just to see what the different connotations are with the model numbers, because it's basically the same TV, but slightly different.
It's quite confusing. If you look on the website, it's like, hang on, there's 3 different versions of the C1. There's a 6LA, 5LA, and a 4LB. The 5LA is exclusive to Curry's PC World. 6LA is the one we've been looking at, which has got a white back to the panel, and then the 5LA has a dark grey metallic back to the panel, which I've got to say, from a purely cosmetic perspective, I much prefer. I think the white back looks a bit cheap, whereas the dark grey matches the stand at the front of the TV. So. But they're all exactly, as far as I can tell, they're all exactly the same.
They're all exactly the same in terms of performance. And as you can see, compared to the G1, there's not a great deal of difference in terms of peak brightness and so on. The G1's slightly different and slightly better in terms of power consumption, but that's about it, really. And of course, obviously, the G1 is the gallery series. So what you're paying for there is, you're paying for a flat-backed OLED TV that will fit nice and neat right up against the wall when it's wall-mounted. It has all the cable and everything in recesses, so you can recess the cables in properly. So it looks fantastic when it's up on the wall. It's a really nice design. Obviously, the C1's the same as the C10, the C9, the C8. In fact, I think it's the same design of stand that they've used for the past 4 or 5 years, if I remember right. So there's no real changes there. Slight difference in color and so on, but that's about it. So it's very small incremental difference compared to the C10, and that's being completely honest. Which doesn't mean it's a bad TV. In fact, it's a cracking,
fantastic television,
TV. Really good TV,
and competitively priced too. The pricing compared to last year. So the 65-inch C10 CX was a 2,999 new last year, and this is 2,699 new. So that's 300 quid less. The 77-inch version, which was £5,000 new last year, is £4,000 for 3,999 this year. So some very competitive pricing, and I think, like we've said on previous podcasts, you can't really add any more features to these TVs. So what's going to happen is that presumably as mass production increases, the pricing will come down, and that's where it's going to be competitive.
Well, the other big thing to mention is obviously the different screen sizes as well. So they have introduced new screen sizes, which we discussed back at CES time. So we now have 83-inch, which is massive when you think about it.
Hasn't actually been released yet, has it?
No.
Pricing hasn't been announced either, but it's on its way.
The pricing's around about £5,000, I think, $5,000 to $6,000. So I think it's around about that mark. Maybe a tad more, and the 48-inch.
So it's 48, 55, 65, 77, and 83.
There's been some already. I get Costco emails for historical reasons, and they've already thrown a promo out for that. So
it's a huge range of screen sizes, and like I say, cracking TV. They've been a really good TV for the last.
And I mean, we do get blasé to it, but 83 inches, as Steve says, that is an enormous amount of real estate for your money. I mean, and if you remember that it always used to be that once you sailed much past the 65 point, the price went up like a sort of COVID exponential curve.
Yeah, because obviously that came down to how much glass they could cut and how many screens they would get out of one piece of glass. And me and Steve had this discussion ourselves a little earlier in the week. Obviously, the new plants are coming online now. You're moving up to new screen sizes that can be able to be cut. With LG Display even announcing at CES that they're going to do a 42-inch OLED. So once you're talking about
classic,
once you're talking 42, 48, 55, those are, for the vast majority of UK users. Obviously, in the US, it's completely different, where people can fit 77 and 83 inches easily into their living rooms. That's not the case in Europe and in the UK. So, it's good to see them bringing in the smaller screen sizes. I think they'll capture more of the market. And obviously, the scale of production going up now, which hopefully will start to impact on pricing. We'll see things start to level off there. And then I think you'll see the next push in terms of development of OLED. A lot of people online, point the finger straight away and say, well, it's stagnating. OLED's been the same for the last few years. Well, yeah, but it has to find its feet. It has to find its market. They have to get production up to a certain level where, it's making money, and then they can look at moving on to the next level. So I don't think OLED's over and done with. I think we'll still see development there. It'll just take a little longer than it has done so far. So yes, it is a little bit of an update over last year's TV, but you get a new remote control as well, which I really like the new remote control.
I like it, except for, it's probably different for you, but because I use a C9 all the time, two things that have bugged me. One, I hate the new version of WebOS in terms of the full screen. I much prefer the launcher bar. And two, the remote control, which I do like generally, but they've moved the input button to a different spot, and they've taken the guide button off. They've taken the guide button off, so you have to go through that list button to get to the guide, or go through the home page.
That does seem like a retrograde step.
That's really annoying. But otherwise,
but they needed a direct Disney Plus button. That's why.
No, I didn't doubt for a moment that there'd be a reason. And you can't please everybody all the time. I completely agree with that, Phil. It's an annoying button to lose, though.
Well, there's a new menu system as well, which for the likes of myself and Steve, who've played around
again, because I'm used to the old menu system, it drives me nuts.
It does take a little bit of time to get used to, but if you're a consumer, that's not going to be an issue unless you've previously had an LG TV.
Yeah, if you're coming to it new, it's no odds. But for me personally, I found it a bit annoying. But like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But there you go.
What I did like this year, though, Steve, they fixed the issue that if you leave the menu up while you're measuring, it doesn't affect your measurements. So if you have the white balance controls up and you're adjusting it and you forget to take the white balance, I forgot to do it. And then I thought, well, hang on, I'll check this. And I checked it, and it made no difference in terms of the measurements. So in terms of calibrating, that saves a lot of time if you're not having to dip in and dip out of menu systems and switch them on and off all the time. So that made quite a bit of difference. I was playing around today, doing measurements and so on, playing around with the AutoCal on Calman 2021. It works perfectly fine. In fact, I managed to get it down to 0.2 on an automatic grayscale.
Your OBE is in the post.
Sorry?
Your OBE is in the post.
All right, okay. But yeah.
The other good news is that this year they put Freeview Play back on.
Yes, Freeview Play is back on there. There's also a gamma control or a luminance control. So when you're doing the white balance now, you can actually adjust. Once you've done it, you can then go in and make sure your gamma's nice and correct as well, and do that in I think it's 22 steps. So that's really useful. I found that really useful as well to get absolutely bang on to. I think in the end, my manual calibration, I think I had 0.1.
It's a separate control now, isn't it?
Yes, separate
control. Because you always could do that, but it was in the white balance control. There was just luminance control, but now it's a separate.
So it's easier to find, and it's easier to use. And once you've done, got everything nice and flat, you can then go and correct your grayscale, and it just makes it that little bit easier. So review coming up soon on that one. I haven't finished testing yet. I actually haven't sat and watched any films on it yet. I've been using it as a living room TV, watching Air Crash Investigation, Forged in Fire,
living the dream.
Yeah, all the important stuff that
quality television.
Have to watch. Ancient Aliens. Been watching lots of Ancient Aliens.
Have you honestly been watching Ancient Aliens?
I have, yes, because it's a new series it's on, and it's absolutely hilarious.
I'm not saying it's aliens, but
it was aliens.
Yeah. or ancient alien investigators suggest.
What was it you WhatsApped me and I came straight back with the ancient alien man? I was quite pleased with myself at that.
I can't remember now, but yeah, it was quite funny.
You sent me something not necessarily suitable for further information about Netflix and chill.
Right, so before we move back to the JBL stuff, do please like the podcast if you would. Be very kind of you if you would like it. The only reason we ask is that if you like the video, it turns up in the algorithm on YouTube. More people can
aids
find it.
Visibility.
Yeah, it makes us more visible. We can get more members into our AV cult and get them into the classifieds and spending their money on new AV kit and all the rest of it. So please hit.
I said you're a massive cult.
Yep, I know. So yeah, hit that like button if you don't mind, and yeah, make us a little bit more visible to people, so they can find us. Right, let's move back to JBL Synthesis. So I'm getting the
sorry about that. Back to what I was saying. And so, design wise,
can I just before you kick off, Steve? If nothing else, the visual comedy you greeted the watchers with, as you briefly floundered, disappeared down further into the screen, and then vanished altogether. I mean,
it looked like you fell off your chair.
It was beautiful. So thank you for that. If nothing else.
So design wise, it's preferable to the RCam. I do like this design, except for one thing, which is and you can see it in the picture if you're watching the podcast, which is that there's a display screen, which in that image is currently showing the name JBL Synthesis on the display screen, but beneath it there's loads of logos that look all crammed in at the bottom, which I got to say does not look very attractive at all, and they should have either put them along the bottom or not bothered with them.
Yeah, I don't like that. The thing that RCam did with it is they've made it really
it's subtle along the bottom thing. Yeah, that's
it's
what
the same color as the chassis, so you really have.
They're also missing a logo because it does actually decode Auro 3D, but it doesn't say that on the front. Right. So I mean, this is a 7-channel AVR. It supports up to 16 channels of processing. The obvious question anyone's going to ask is what's the difference between this and the AVR30, which we've already reviewed. Not a lot. I mean, they both use Class G. They're both based on essentially the same architecture. But the 35 uses 24-bit 192 kilohertz ESS Sabre 9028 Pro DAC. It's got Lexicons, well, Harman now, but it's based upon Lexicons, the Logic 7, but it's Logic 16, which is essentially an upmixer. I mean, that means you've got 4 different upmixers to choose from. And it includes, so if you buy an RCam, you can obviously use Dirac Live, but you have to pay extra for the base management. The JBL package, it comes with the base management part included in the price, which I think is worth about $500. It is more expensive. The pricing I was sent on the press release said, and unless I'm looking at a dollar number, let me just double check it is the sterling amount. Yeah, it says $6,000, isn't it? Is $6,000. But I was looking online this morning just out of curiosity, so I thought, how much is it? Before I looked at the press release, and the retailer I saw was selling it for $7,500, but technically it's supposed to be $6,000 according to this.
Yeah,
which is a bit more than the. I think off the top of my head, it's $5,000, isn't it? $5,000 for the. I think it's $5,000, isn't it, for the unless it's dropped in price, but remember the AVR30 is $5,000, so it's a bit more. One of the things someone's mentioned this twice already. What's his name? Oh yeah, History Amazing H. It's got the Dante connection. He's asking me about it and what I think of it. Until yesterday, I'd never heard of Dante.
It does sound like a Robert Ludlum novel. I'm not going to lie.
Can you you got any input here?
I don't know. I
know it's an IP networking capability,
right?
For streaming music, I believe, but I'll be honest, I'm unaware all about it.
Utterly unaware of it. I can only assume it's proprietary. If essentially you can use RJ45 to do all sorts of lively things, but I'm not familiar with where it's coming from. So I'll have a look and I'll see. But yes, this is a new one on me. But I mean, any connection called Dante. I mean, I'm already
thinking in my head. already thinking for the copy, you know, Dante's Inferno, 7 Levels of Hell. So let's hope it's not a bad review.
No, or if it's a good review, possibly Dante and Randall from Clark's.
Oh yeah, that would be quite good. Good call.
Oh no, hang on a second. We've been rescued here by Stuart. It's a
audio over IP.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough. So it's a proprietary.
You learn something new every day. Every day is a school day, isn't it?
Well,
I'm actually getting a briefing on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week by JBL or Harman. So I'll ask the question. I'll get a little bit more.
Well, I've got to talk to them on Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, if we can't find something else if Steve can't get anything else to actually partner with it, another Dante source or unit, it's going to have to go untested. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast. We do get
I'll ask my mate who's an custom installer, because I'm sure he'll know. But anyway, so far, I mean, like I said, I only installed it yesterday, but it's I've listened to music, the stream. I've got to say that I don't know. Obviously, it's the same, as I said, the same architecture as the Arcam, apart from the fact it's got the different DAC, the Dante connection, and the Logic 16 processing. But setup wise, used AirPlay, not a bother, absolutely spot on. Everything's working fine. I haven't had any issues with it whatsoever so far. Admittedly, it's only been a day. I was streaming some music last night, listening to it, just having a little play.
Well, I mean, obviously, obviously, you're mentioning that because of the Arcam issue.
I'm mentioning that because there's been some issues with the Arcam.
Yeah.
One or two.
Yes. Yeah. But I certainly haven't had any issues so far with.
I've got to say, until 2 weeks ago, I was still using the AVR20, the Arcam AVR20, and using that to stream music and so on. And a lot of the issues that I had originally with the AV40 and the AVR20, after the last update, they've all kind of been ironed out. I haven't had any issues. So, and of course, I'm getting the processor next week, the synthesis processor next week, which is the same or on the same architecture as the AV40. So it'll be interesting again to see what the differences are there and so on, because I've only just stopped using the Arcam stuff. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, from your perspective, it'd be you go directly from one to the other, so that'd be quite a good comparison, won't it?
Yeah, it should be. So looking forward to that, and obviously the reviews will be coming soon. So we'll get, like Steve says, you only set his up yesterday, and I don't get my processor till next week, and I've got TVs to review first of all, so it's going to be a little while before I get round to doing the full processor review. But yeah, keep your eyes out. Those reviews will be coming up soon. And like I say, the C1 review should be next week at some point, and we'll do the video reviews and the settings videos for that as well. Hopefully Kaz is going to come back, because we're going to go on to software next.
If you enjoy the podcast on YouTube, then please like and subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version, then please leave us a rating on your podcast app. We invite you to email questions and feedback to podcast@avforums.com and join in with this episode's discussion thread in the podcasts forum at AV Forums.
And as if by magic, Kaz appears, and we're going to talk about albums, so you can sit there a little bit longer.
Sorry, Kaz.
Right, so album of the week. I'm going to be quite quick with this one because it's a great album. Go listen to it. What is it, Ed?
Right, this is a UK artist called Dodie, and she released an album on Friday called Build a Problem. I wasn't really familiar with her work up until this point. I was aware of her, but I hadn't listened to very much of what she's done. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When I sit down on a Friday morning and I plow through all of the new releases on Qobuz and then check other things and so on and so forth. This wasn't album of the week on Friday. There was something else. But the more I've listened to this, the more I have come to appreciate just how good it is. Defining what genre this lady sits in is a tricky one. It is somewhere between pop and folk. But please, for the love of all things, don't let that put you off, because it is brilliantly inventive. She has a fabulous voice. She has an effortless ear for the arrangement of music and so on and so forth. And it's just one of those albums, the more you listen to it, the cleverer it gets. And one of the tracks on it, Hate Myself, is 3 minutes and 28 seconds long. And I swear to God, it is one of the single most perfect pop songs I have heard in 20 or 30 years. It is absolutely sensational. So yeah, just one of those things. Let it happen in the background a couple of times, and then sit down and listen to it. And also, I will say, if you are a headphone listener, the amount of additional detail that you can pick out on headphones and earphones, because it's quite an open mic'd sort of recording. It's just genuinely lovely. I've ordered a vinyl copy because I'm an idiot, but as you can see, you can have it in all manner of things, including with cassettes, baseball caps, all sorts of stuff. I mean, she is originally, as I understand it, an Instagram influencer, so she understands her way around these things. Yeah. But nevertheless, this album really got under my skin. I cannot recommend it highly enough, and I think it's a really good listen.
I've got to say, I listened to the first couple of tracks. I thought, yeah, okay, I'll move on. But actually, I sat and listened to on the main system as background music, and then I put it on through the Genelex on my main system here while I was working. And like you say, the production, the dynamics in the recording, the orchestration that she
is a clever lady, and no mistake.
It sounds amazing, really good.
And I just give a very quick honourable mention. The album that was originally going to be the album of the week, and I have mentioned her in the past on a previous podcast, Sarah Jarosz, that is Jarosz. She released another album which was recorded in 2018, has only just been released, called the Blue Heron Suite, and that is also spellbinding. But that's music done for the week. It's Kaz time.
Yeah, so we're going to move on to movies. And Kaz, this one was proofed this morning and then sent my way to publish. And I thought, why has Kaz done a review of a 2003 movie and just the movie and not the disc? Because I thought it was Big Fish.
Big Fish, yeah, which is due a 4K release.
Got that disc.
Yeah. Oh, well, so, no surprises there. But
so,
yes.
so that's what I was expecting. So I'm reading the review and I'm thinking, this is not what I'm thinking it is. And then I had to check the title again. It's like, different film altogether.
Yes, very different film. Thanks to Lucas's King from the forums for this one. It would have completely gone under my radar. It's called Little Fish. It's obviously a little indie flick that no one's heard of. Sony are releasing it. It's come straight to digital. I think it's technically a 2020 movie, but it's 2021 as far as we're concerned because it's only just got released. But it's a very spellbinding, heartbreaking tale of a couple who are caught up in, I want to give away as little as possible, something of an approximation of a pandemic, just not quite the same pandemic we're going through. And they spend their time going over their memories about how they got together and, their first kiss and when they got married. And you'll see through the whole point of the narrative why they do that. And it's heartbreaking. It's very well put together. Hints of Memento, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I really can't recommend it enough. I gave it a 9. I gave it an unmissable, and according to some of the feedback, I gave it one of my better reviews of late, and I was a little bit surprised, but very, very pleased with.
Are you suggesting that people on the forums are looking at the scores and judging your review just on the scores alone, Kaz?
No,
I don't believe our members do stuff like that.
No, they actually read it this time. And
all right, okay.
Said that I'd written a good review.
Makes a change then.
I had to go back and read it myself and just check that they were talking about the same one.
So where can people watch this if they want to watch it?
You have to rent it or buy it. It's $9.99. It's on Apple. It's on Amazon. It's on all the major providers. It's worth it. I think it's $4.99 to rent.
Okay.
I would take a chance on it. I'm surprised that it hasn't got a little bit more recognition, but I can also kind of see why. It's very small scale. It's a 2-person piece, but it's got a sci-fi bent to it because that's essentially the situation. It's an alternate present that the people are living in, and it's got a pair of tremendous performances from Olivia Cooke, who was in Sound of Metal recently and got some measure of acclaim for that, but is actually, I think, for my money, much better in this. And she's got a Manchester Oldham accent in this, which is the first time I've heard her rock that. It's really good. And
It's her normal accent.
it's Same
with Jack O'Connell. It's nice to see him using his normal English accent, presumably.
No, he doesn't in this. No, he affects his American accent that
because he's from somewhere up north as well, isn't he?
He's going American, but she's going proper Oldham, and it's really good. I mean, an odd comparison would be when Van Damme spoke in French for JCVD and actually could act. Something which he clearly wasn't capable of doing. I love the guy, but clearly wasn't capable of doing in any other language. So, which was absolutely phenomenal, and it was really good seeing Olivia Cooke in this. She deserved some plaudits. I never know the word. She deserves some credit for this one.
Okay.
And Jack O'Connell's great. Worth checking it out, hunting it down. As I say, I both in the review and in what I've just said, I've very much skirted around the subject because hopefully it'll be a pleasant surprise for when you do watch it.
So moving over AV quality and so on, Kaz.
It is a small movie, so it is HD. There's no chance this is ever going to get 4K from anything. But I picked it up on Apple, and I would say the opening shot is a close up of an eye. And I thought it looked phenomenal. It's a
good cinematography then.
Yeah, it's really well put together. I mean, it's low budget and it's filmed in quite a gritty way. As I say, it's supposed to be sci-fi, but not necessarily massively futuristic. Instead, they rely on some quite interesting locations, which works. Broken down locations and distinctive buildings, but it works. But it's not a particular demo piece, but it looks good.
So it fits a subject matter.
It does.
Yep.
It does, and it's got some. I mean, it's got no 4K Dolby Vision, HDR, all of that, but it's got a few nice popping moments because they spend a bit of time in a nightclub, and colors are surprisingly important later on into the piece. And they also go to an aquarium where all of the lit up
little
fish tanks.
Yeah.
That looks quite pleasant. It's a nice looking piece. Definitely check it out. And I'm always impressed by Apple. I mean, even in HD, it's I regularly rely on Apple for all of these things. I don't normally look on other places. I normally find Sky is offering the same thing that Apple's offering
Sky's
in 4K.
terrible.
Yeah, except they're offering it in HD for the same price.
Yeah. It makes a difference going to Apple and use. Right. So let's move things on slightly from there. Oh, by the way, what aspect ratio was it, Kaz?
It's 2.4. It's
2.4.
quite a
All right.
2.4. It doesn't look like a straight to streaming style production because they're favoring. Is it 2.2, Steve? That Netflix does.
Yeah.
That's like this really weird ratio.
So some of them are 2.0 actually. 2.0.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's kind of they're picking some odd in between ratios.
That's cool. Good stuff. Right. So let's move on. We didn't talk about Falcon and Winter Soldier, so why don't we talk about it now? So I think all three of us have seen it because I'm not including Ed in this.
You don't need to worry about me, guys.
Yeah, I'll just ignore Ed.
Fine.
So I watched the first episode and then I left it till they all had landed, and then I spent a Sunday going through it all back to back. Basically, I took a break for lunch in the middle and watched the whole thing. So I guess let's talk about the impact it had, because to me it felt like solid Marvel Universe storytelling. Money was on the screen, spent a lot of money on it, and obviously you could tell the effects, but to me it didn't have the same kind of impact that WandaVision had. And I know they're completely different parts of the same universe, but do you think, Steve, this was because the release pattern was changed because of the pandemic?
They did it in the wrong. Oh, sorry, Steve.
Sorry, Kaz. This is meant to be the first of the Disney Plus series, but obviously it got delayed because of the pandemic. And then so if they opened with WandaVision, which clearly they wouldn't have chosen as their original first series because of the nature of WandaVision, the first 3 episodes are basically 3 half-hour black and white comedies, or 2 black and white and 1 color. So this is more your traditional Marvel fare. I do think that I don't know this is for sure, but I'm pretty sure, just from watching it and from reading about it online, that they had to significantly change the plot because it involved a pandemic, and so they had to reshoot and gloss over some things, which I think was unfortunately to the detriment of the Flag Smashers. The whole Flag Smasher subplot felt undeveloped.
You mean the Rebel Alliance?
Yeah. They're I think, as originally written and shot, they were stealing vaccines because there was a pandemic, possibly created deliberately to wipe out people because everyone had come back after the blip, and now and so it felt undeveloped, which is a shame because I think there was a lot of interesting ideas in there. They could have made the Flag Smashers really interesting and sympathetic, and therefore make it more complicated because you kind of agree with them. In the same way that you kind of agree with Killmonger and Black Panther, and therefore, it's hard to treat them as villains. But also, it wasn't helped by the fact that the girl playing the leaders looked about 10. Why can't they? And it was a terrible actress, if you want my opinion.
Well, she was the start of Rebel Alliance in Solo, wasn't she?
Yeah, she is the same.
And that was, and as soon as she popped up on screen, that's all I could think of. Every time she was on screen, that's all I could think of was.
She looked like a teenage Maya Rudolph to me.
Yeah. So before we get into spoilers, and we'll try and not get into any spoilers for those that haven't seen it and are listening.
Oh, we're going to spoil the shit out of this. Otherwise,
come on.
If you haven't seen it by now, tough luck.
Okay.
Turn off.
But the one thing I did like was the pacing. Although, to me, it kind of peaked a little bit too early in terms of the pacing, in terms of the storytelling. And the end felt a little bit forced, which is kind of... it's like one long movie, really. If you look at the acts were just separated over a little,
it's
a
just
little bit longer time.
6-hour movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But to me, it was around about episode 4 or 5. It really was, knocking out the park. And then I just felt the ending was just a bit of a damp squib. But there was some plot twists that you could see coming a mile off. And it just felt I just thought the ending just didn't quite live up to the rest of it, because they took the time. Episode 1, they really took the time to give you a bit of backstory, like you say, Steve, to get into the blip. I think the blip's a fantastic tool to use for storytelling.
Yes, it opens up some really interesting avenues.
It does, absolutely, and it it's not too far removed from what we've been going through in the last few years as well. Obviously people didn't disappear, but a lot of the themes are the same, and you can understand the themes and like you say, sympathize with the cause, because that was the main thing. It was all gray area. There's no black and white when it comes to villains and all the rest of it in real life, and that's the same here. And I just thought it was really well played, really well acted, apart from the last that was the leader of the
Teenage Maya
Resistance.
Rudolph.
I think if what Steve's saying, it would have been a more pandemic-y, on the nose, vaccine-driven one. I think that sounds like a much better production, and I think they should have really taken the chance and just gone.
The reason I say that is because in the first episode they are stealing vaccine, and then later on there's that the main Flag Smasher, her surrogate mother, dies. And they never really talk about what she's died of, and so I think that was what this was all about. And they've obviously, for obvious reasons, have changed the road away from the plot point. But it does mean that that aspect, which is really interesting and had loads of potential, I think they kind of slightly fumbled it there. Whereas the whole idea of a black super soldier in the 50s during the Korean War, that aspect
that was really
absolutely fantastic. They nailed it, and they nailed the whole idea of it's really about Sam's struggle. Does he want to be Black Captain America? Will the country accept a Black Captain America? I thought that whole aspect was fantastic. I thought that Wyatt Russell was really good in it too, as is it John Carter? I want to say John Carter. It's not John Walker. John Walker.
Totally different ballgame.
Agent Man.
The only problem I had was what should have been really, really emotional at the end when they bring Isaiah Washington. Is it Isaiah Washington? Isaiah, I can't remember his surname now. The old black super soldier, when they bring him to the Smithsonian, and they've added him because he's spent his entire life being basically, written out of history, and they add him into the Smithsonian exhibition. It should have been incredibly emotional. It wasn't, because that must be the cheapest, crappiest looking statue I've ever seen.
Was it as bad as the Cristiano Ronaldo one?
Not quite that bad, no.
But
it wasn't much better.
Much
I just thought the statue was awful. And I thought, wow, this is really taking me out of it. And I had a problem with the show. And again, it might have been because it was shot during the pandemic, because it couldn't have been easy. But yes, they'd spent some money, but it was nowhere near as polished as a film. The effects looked good, but it never looked that. There were shots where it just looked, it looked TV, and it wasn't as polished in post-production. Maybe they didn't have enough time, or maybe because apparently they couldn't do as much as they wanted to do. It didn't look as polished in terms of the widescreen stuff as the widescreen stuff in WandaVision did.
Yeah.
You just lacked that kind of slightly cinematic look to it sometimes.
If we take
but it wasn't quite there.
If we take the stuff that was done in Mandalorian, which I did watch, as opposed to all of this.
Yeah, but that was mostly shot inside a volume, so that they're kind of like doing the effects.
It's completely different.
Yeah, it's different.
This is more traditional filmmaking.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously you have a year of post-production on a film, and they didn't have a year of post-production on this, so it doesn't look quite as polished. But it still was very good. But there's like a couple of times, like they use the same location at least 4 times, and you're like, they obviously went there for 2 days and just shot everything. And also they had the same problem, which is like, everyone starts talking about it online, and like there's going to be a big guest appearance in episode 5. You're thinking, oh God, is it going to be like, is Steve Rogers back? And it turns out to be Julie Louis-Dreyfus. Now, I think partly that didn't work because her character is meant to be in Black Widow, and we haven't seen Black Widow yet. So unfortunately, the pandemic is really buggering up all of
I have to say, I can't imagine that being a big guest appearance at all, really.
But it wasn't, was it?
No, but even if we'd seen Black Widow, I don't think people would have gone.
No, people were thinking like, is it Chadwick Boseman? Did he shoot something before he died? Is it Steve?
Exactly.
And we get Julie Louis-Dreyfus, who I like, but it's like, is that it?
Yeah,
and then obviously the whole Sharon Carter subplot was like, oh, come on.
Yeah, well, you could see that coming a mile off, couldn't
you?
Well,
no, exactly. But then you're thinking, well, hang on, what's going on?
Yeah,
exactly. Her character just completely changed now, unless she's a Skrull in disguise.
She's a Skrull. It's got to be. It's the only explanation for that.
It's something like that.
Look at her surname. It doesn't. Anyway.
Yeah. So I guess the main thing is Sam and Bucky do the work as a double act. That's the main thing.
Yeah, that was the heart of the show, and it worked really well.
They do, but I'm not really sure they didn't get as much as. I mean, Bucky in particular didn't get as much at the end as I wanted him to. I think what Phil said about it reaching a high kind of episode 4, with the bloody shield, was spot on. I don't think it had the impact of WandaVision. And I do think it might have worked better being the first one because it was very safe. I think Isaiah Bradley, I think Carl Lumbly, who was from Alias days, I think.
No, go back far enough. He's also from Cagney and Lacey.
Yeah. I mean,
Nice.
I think
for those of us who are of a certain age,
I personally think he acted Anthony Mackie off the screen.
Yeah, he was really good.
I think he was really good, and you could see the huge chasm of acting difference between the two of them when they were on screen together. And I like Mackie, but I find that Falcon is just about the limits of what he has to offer that I've seen, really.
Also, I thought Zemo stole any episode he was in.
Yeah, Zemo was great, and again, he was a bit underwritten in terms of where this particular series wanted to go, whatever that'll mean in the future. But yeah, I mean, people talking about doing like a Captain America 4 with Anthony Mackie as Captain America, I'm not feeling it from him, unfortunately. I also think that personally, I get that the whole not having powers thing is from the comics, and I get that they tried to show what having powers could do to corrupt individuals, but they should have given him powers.
Yeah, it was a bit towards the end where there's a truck falling off of
I'm not having it.
And he's pushing it up. I'm saying, I know he's got rocket jetpacks on, but he's still got to use his arms to hold a truck up. He's not a super soldier.
Doesn't make any sense. Whatever that suit was doing, if you put a human body between a truck and a thruster, he'd have just been squashed. It didn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, it's not just that though. It's the moves that he's pulling when he's flying in that suit. the G-forces that he's pulling, and that's
Killed him.
Yeah,
it would have killed him.
It would have been his own episode of Air Crash
They should-
Yeah, it
Investigation.
would have. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they should have just given him a jab and shown what a jab in a good, decent human being does.
Yeah.
And given him some powers. I mean, as you can see from Bucky, having powers is it varies from scene to scene. In some scenes, he's
If
you
he
know,
needs to be
struggling.
fast, he's very
Yeah,
fast. But
he's
when he
suddenly
needs to be
he's
slow to
sprints,
not
yeah.
be somewhere, suddenly he's really slow
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, so they can make it change. They should have just given it to him, because personally, I think he was massively underpowered. They gave him a pretty white suit, which looked horrific.
You know what that was? Again, this is the whole post-production time schedule, money, whatever it is. But if you watch, say, Avengers Endgame, none of them are wearing costumes. That's all added in CG, which is why they fit perfectly. He was wearing a real costume, and it made him look fat and doughy when he's not. I mean, he's in top shape, but it just, because he's wearing an actual physical costume, and they didn't, spend all that time and money giving him a nice, smooth, sleek CG costume. It made him look like the Stay Puft guy at the end of Ghostbusters.
Also, what's the timeline on getting in shape to be Captain America? Because he took like one episode and a montage.
Yeah.
And
Well,
he could
first of
throw
all,
a
he was
shield
talking with Bucky,
perfectly.
and when he was throwing it better than he was during the montage
Yeah,
after that
He
scene.
did this ridiculous montage. He did a few press ups. I mean, was it 6 months or was it like 24 hours?
I was just waiting for the Team America montage.
Yeah, it
So
was.
come on.
If they didn't play that music, they missed out. I can only assume the licensing was just too expensive.
With
They
that guy, the Walker. What was his name?
John Walker.
Yeah, with him, they could have made a really, really good 2 hour straight to Disney Plus Falcon and the Winter Soldier movie, I think, and they could have focused on him. If they can't do the Flag Smashers, do the pandemic, they could have stripped that out to just background noise and just have the wrong guy take up the shield and have it be about these two, their love-hate relationship and getting the shield back. Because that's what it was about. They just took 6 hours to do it, did it in a mediocre way with some budget and with a standout episode, but largely ended up back where they did at the beginning, which is
And then they missed
Anthony
a real
Mackie's
trick.
holding a shield.
Because at the beginning, it's the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It should have been at the end, Captain America and the White Wolf.
Oh
Because
yeah,
the whole point that by the end they both become different people, haven't they?
Yeah,
And it's-
maybe they did do quite well for changing it to Captain America and the Winter
Yeah,
Soldier.
but why call him the Winter Soldier? The whole point was he got past that now, so he should have been the White Wolf.
Yeah, he should have been. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you said to me 2 years ago that I would have been watching MCU TV programs, I'd have laughed at you.
I'd have told you 2 years time you're watching that, and you won't have a choice because there's no movies. There hasn't been
Yep.
a Marvel movie since July 2019.
The contingencies are quite important on
Yeah,
this
yeah.
one. but,
Okay, okay. I did gloss over it a little bit there, but anyway. Right. So let's move on to, obviously we've got about 15 minutes left. So let's move really quickly over to the subject of HDR, because Kaz, he came up with an interesting one, which was the good, the bad, the ugly in 4K. Did it need a HDR? And this is something that we see quite often on the forums, and basically it's some aspects of misunderstanding what HDR actually is, and just expecting HDR to be on everything and to look spectacular and all the time, which at the end of the day, HDR is a tool for making movies. We've seen videos on YouTube and so on that complain about, well, the Star Wars films on Disney Plus only got to 300 nits. That's fake HDR. No, that's not. That's creative intent, and that's it's in an HDR container. It doesn't have to be 1,000 nits. It doesn't have to be 1,500 nits peak brightness. It can be whatever the creator intends it to be, or they don't use it at all, because you look at things like some of the big cinematographers, and his name's just popped right in my head, Deakins. Look at somebody like Deakins, whose his portfolio work is some of the best looking movies that have existed in the last 20 years. He doesn't do HDR. Blade Runner 2049, a lot of the James Bond stuff, 1917, they'll come out on the HDR disc in an HDR container, but he's not somebody who exploits the use of HDR. It's there for wide color and so on, but not to take the peak brightness too high or so on. So, Kaz, you raised the question. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly 4K, did it need HDR? So I haven't seen it. So there's only you and Steve that's seen it. So only you and Steve can really answer this question. So
yeah, I mean, it mainly came from the thread because I noticed, you know, a lot of people love the film, and a lot of people were saying, yeah, it's this looks really good. It's a shame they didn't do HDR. And I think I went to lengths in the review to say it looked phenomenal, better than it's ever looked before. This particular label, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, Kino did a couple of Blu-ray versions and screwed up the color timing. They went blue with one, I think yellow with the other.
Well, it was MGM did there was an MGM did a 4K restoration a few years ago, and that was the one that looked yellow.
Yeah.
And then Kino Lorber did a release where they tried to correct that.
And went blue,
a bit cyany.
Yeah, bluey green. Yeah. And
this looks spectacular in my opinion, in terms of the colors. And I know a lot of people are going like, "Oh, why hasn't it got HDR?" And
well, my
there's
first
a couple
question
of possible reasons.
Well, is it an HDR container or is it an SDR container?
It's an SDR. It's SDR Rec 709.
So it's 709. Yeah. Okay.
709 10-bit.
Yeah.
You know, because the thing about HDR is that up until the last 5 years, video's been delivered in SDR, standard dynamic range, and that's the way it's been since, well, I don't know, since video was being delivered, and it's based around the limitations of technology at the time, which was, you know, a CRT television or monitor with a peak brightness of 100 nits. So HDR is now a bigger pipe to get information down, which means you can, if you so wish, have much brighter highlights. You've got more latitude in the shadows and the dark parts of the picture, and you've got, and this is probably something that people forget about, you've got a much wider color gamut. And so you've got more colors to play with. That's what it's there. Doesn't mean say you have to use it, as you said, Phil. You know, you could be a cinematographer, you could say, look, well, I'm going to do this, and I don't really care about that. Ultimately, it is the creator's intent. Now, when you're talking about old films, they were shot with HDR in mind. They were just shot to be projected.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's, you know, the negative's got plenty of information in there in terms of luminance that they can pull out to give you a more punchy HDR grade, and sometimes there isn't. Doesn't make it. It's still, you know, I watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly projected anyway. So from my perspective, HDR wouldn't have made a massive difference, other than maybe a slightly wider color gamut. But in the case of Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, it was shot on Techniscope, which is a poor man's widescreen. It's a piece of 35mm film that's literally split into 2 frames, so 2 perf rather than 4 perf, and each frame is 2.35 to, or 2.3 to 1 or 2.2 to 1, I think, something like that. And then it's projected, masked at 2.39 to 1. So that's why Leone can do things like extreme close-ups, because he's not using an anamorphic lens. He's shooting it in this. Now, a Techniscope frame is half the size of 35mm frame, which means you've got less resolution essentially to work with, particularly if you're shooting in 35 with an anamorphic lens. There's a tendency for there to be more grain, but that's because it's blown up for 35mm presentation. So if you're scanning the actual negative, you will have less grain because you're actually just taking it straight off of the Techniscope negative. But it may well be that there isn't that much, you know, think about it, this wasn't a massive budget film, and it was shot, you know, on location in the Spanish desert.
Yeah.
So it might well be there's not a lot in there to play with. Or it might just be the Italian rights holders couldn't be asked, or were too tight to stump up the dosh for an HDR grade, which can cost something like $100,000. All I can say is that I thought it looked bloody amazing. I'm very happy.
I did.
And it does appear that as you own almost all of the versions, that can be taken to be quite an authoritative take.
Yeah, I think that people should be really happy that they got it, the color right.
Yes.
And maybe focus more on that than, because it's such a theoretical what is missing from this. I mean, they could have stuck HDR on the front of the box and had completely the wrong tone to the whole thing. They could have gone deep blue in this version, and people would look at it like it was the French Connection,
oversaturated.
Yeah, it could have been really bad. Instead, it doesn't have the letters HDR on the front of the box, but actually they've corrected it, and it looks striking. I mean, some of the blue skies were fantastic.
Or the uniforms of the
The
Union
uniforms
soldiers
with the
look
little red
great.
sash. Yeah, it's really.
I mean, I'll tell you the shot that looks great is when they think they're Confederate soldiers.
Yeah,
and then they brush all the dust off, and then the blue underneath comes through. It's much better in this version because you can really see the blue coming through underneath the dust.
Yeah,
it's also a really funny scene when he goes like, "God hates idiots." Also,
yeah, yeah. I did because I remember watching that on even as far back as the old video. I remember when I used to watch it. When he actually realizes it's grey, the difference between the grey and the blue isn't just, it's like a bit of a muddy blue, isn't it? It's not a big seismic difference. Whereas in this, it's proper kind of royal blue, very deep, and looks really good. Yeah, I think it looks tremendous. I don't think it could look any better. I mean, obviously, Studio Canal will pick it up. They'll stick Dolby Vision on it, and then I'll have to eat my words. But
but again, it depends what they do with the grade, doesn't it? Because, like I say, it's the creator's intent. It's what they want to do with it, and it depends how much latitude they have to play with to start with. How much was in the original.
Also, Phil, you just said it, creator's intent. Well, director and director of photography are both dead, so.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Cool, isn't it?
I suppose I have to wonder with some of these older movies, like particularly something like this. I mean, is the mileage for HDR really noticeable on modern productions, particularly ones with like a 2K pipe and with lavish effects? I mean, is it where you really get your mileage on your WCG and your HDR and your Dolby Vision? I wonder with Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I mean, as I say, I can't sit at it and go, I just wanted that blue sky to pop more. I mean,
Ken, son of SJ, has just mentioned Lawrence of Arabia. Now, have you got the disc, Kaz?
I don't. I do have the disc. I haven't played it.
Right. When you watch it, particularly, and I'm thinking specifically here about the scene where Omar Sharif appears out of the desert. I think the HDR grade draws out damage in the film stock that you can't see normally. So sometimes if you push the HDR grade, you can actually reveal things maybe you don't want to see. That were in the camera negative, and you wouldn't normally see them because they wouldn't be pushed that far in terms of their brightness. And I think that's definitely what's happening in that scene. Because most of the disc is absolutely spectacular, but there are a couple of shots where you're like, what's going on there? So it could be detrimental.
I noticed that in a scene in Angel Heart, they put Dolby Vision on that, and there's a scene where he talks to a guy on a beach, the guy who has this funny clip-on sunglasses to protect him from the sun, and he gives him a pair. And when they've got the shot of the beach front, and you can see the sky, and the sky is very shimmery with like artifacting noise, and it looks like something that maybe Dolby Vision is.
Do you know what you're talking about here? Just resonates on so many of the remasters of classic albums, and it's like ultimately you're messing around with master tapes that there are problems on those master tapes, and really going to town on them yields some excitingly mixed results. So I don't know, it's one of those things. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I was coming on to, because Kaz mentioned it a couple of times here. Oh, well, it's got Dolby Vision. What do you mean by that? Dolby Vision could be 100 nits. It all depends on the grade. You know what I mean? So just because something's in Dolby Vision doesn't mean it's great HDR, or it's going to be really bright, or it's going to have more latitude in the whites or more latitude in the darker areas of the image. It all depends on what they've done in the grade and how that's transferred over. So something could be Dolby Vision, like I say, like the Star Wars films on Disney. They're in Dolby Vision, Disney Plus. I think they max out about 250, 300 nits. So,
which is fine, because I mean,
which is fine. That's what the way it is. Yeah. So what HDR is trying to do, and the point of HDR is not to have mega bright things. It's to be able to sit in a dark room, have a scene where it's set in a dark room with a window, and normally, or in the past, as Steve says, when you saw it in other formats, what was out of the window would be blown out because they would try and balance for what was in the room. whereas HDR gives you the latitude to be completely able to see what's in the room, but also what's happening outside, and actually see detail in the bright areas outside. It's not about, glaring neon lights in Blade Runner or whatever. That's not really what HDR is about. HDR is about adding a little bit of realism. And the best piece of HDR I saw or have seen up to now was a car parked outside a hotel with the hotel canopy with the lights, and the lights coming down onto the car. And it was like standing next to the car because it looked so real, the way that the light was mixed, and you could see the texture of the metal of the car and so on. It just looked, I know it's cliche, but it looked like you were actually looking at that item right in front of you. That's what HDR is all about. It needs to be used in that context, and it is being used in that context. Apart from, I've maybe seen one or two things. I think one or two grades have pushed it a little bit far, as Steve says, but most of the time there is a certain degree of sympathy to the material, and I think, and I like the fact that has been held up. The Wizard of Oz looks fantastic, but there's nothing,
because it's the color
over the
aspect
top
to it as well, isn't there?
Yeah,
I mean, that Technicolor photography looks amazing in HDR because you've got the wider color gamut.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not over the top. It's not in your face. It's not overly bright. It's done with some sympathy to the material, because most of the people are behind was, well, all of them, right? They'll all be dead. 1939, so they've all gone. But it's dealt with a bit of sympathy towards the material, and as long as that's done, it could be 100 nits, it could be 1,000 nits, it could be 2,000 nits, it could be 10,000 nits. As long as it's done with some sympathy and with some respect to what the intention is, and it normally is, and it's normally creator's intent. So yeah, I know what you're saying, Kaz, when you say, well, it's got Dolby Vision or it'll come with Dolby Vision. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be particularly great. It all comes down to how it's graded, and I see that time and time again with comments on the forums where people just expect, this film's going to look amazing in HDR. Well, why? Why are you thinking that that's going to be the case? Because at the end of the day, it's how they've graded it and how you see it. It could be that they want to have the light on the wall at 1,000 nits. Fantastic, that'll look great. But I think, like everything in our hobby, and go back to the olden days, if you could get hold of a DTS mix, you coveted after the DTS mix.
God, people got really excited.
I mean, you spent hundreds on a DVD because it came from Japan and it had a DTS, 1,500 kilobits per second mix or whatever. So I think we do, in our side of things, tend to get a little bit too involved with the technology, and that's me saying that. Sometimes it's creator's intent, and as long as you give them the tools, I think, let them use the tools and see what they come up with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that. I certainly fielded back any comments on the thread to say anybody who owns it would probably testify to the fact that it's not likely to ever look any better than this. Yeah, you should definitely pick it up. I mean,
if you can find it.
Yeah, if you can find it, yeah. But
maybe you can hire the badly ugly.
I can see in advance a lot of people going, "Oh, it's a bit odd. It doesn't have HDR." But anybody who actually owns the disc and has seen it, they should, they should know.
Stu said he wants it. Where can he get it?
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, I mean, Wow HD might be back in now. It was out for a bit, and Deep Discount is doing it. But it did sell out like a hotcake.
I mean, if they're sensible, they will do a repressing. But it could be that they
might also do a reissue with the extended cut, because they have clearly got the extended cut footage on the disc
in 4K.
Current disc in 4K, yeah. So it would be pretty straightforward for them to put together an extended cut as well. I prefer the theatrical cut personally, but they could do that as a reissue if they want to. But I mean, they were testing the waters, and we'll see what they do next. But hopefully that means they'll at least do the other films. I'd like to see Once Time in America. Sorry, Once Time in the that as well. But Once Time in the West I'd love to see that on 4K.
I just think of the Dire Straits song there. Sorry,
they've got
completely
the Dollars trilogy, haven't they? Kino have.
Yeah, and actually, I think Kino even did a reissue on behalf of Paramount of Once Time in the West as well, and they've got Duck You Sucker / Fistful of Dynamite / Once Time in Revolution, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, Eureka.
So they could do all of those apart from Once Time in America, which is a Warner's production.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're almost bang on time. We've only gone 4 minutes over, so great. Thanks for your input again, guys, this evening. It's been appreciated. Donations-wise, Rick Reed has donated $5. Thank you very much, Rick. It is appreciated. He had a question. 8,000 US budget. Best TV to purchase, 50% gaming, 50% streaming. 9 feet away, room is not overly bright, mostly nighttime viewing. Get yourself an OLED.
Doesn't mention screen size, though. So 8,000, buy a 32-inch professional monitor. I'm only kidding.
From 9 feet.
Yeah. No, biggest OLED you can get, C1 is probably the best.
I would say with that budget, you get yourself an 83-inch C1.
Probably. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Because obviously Panasonic isn't an option for US customers.
Not that screen size. Or in the US, no.
But again, LG have everything on board for gaming as well.
Yeah.
So he doesn't say if it's console gaming, PC gaming, whatever. LG have you covered.
It's
whichever
just
gaming
sort you out. Yeah.
LG has you covered. So that'd be the recommendation there. And thanks very much
Thank you,
for your donation, Rick. It is appreciated. Well, that's it for us this evening. We just need to do the podcast competition, Kaz.
Sure. To win a 2-movie box set of The Craft and Blumhouse's The Craft Legacy on Blu-ray, just use the following question to select the correct answer from the competition page. What year was this 2021 Blu-ray released in? 0% correct so far, guys. 0% correct.
Yeah, I think you've been a bit
time
sneaky
to redress the balance.
But anyway, that's it for this week. My thanks to Ed Selley.
In fact, I think most Scottish cuisine is based on a dare.
Steve Withers.
Look at the size of that boy's head.
My favourite line in the... And Ed Selley.
Oh, Kaz.
Oh, sorry, Kaz.
So we'll have another one from Ed if you like. She smelled like soup.
Excellent. Well, if you enjoyed the podcast, like I say, please give it a like. It really is important that you like the video if you enjoyed it, and also subscribe to the channel. And you can hit the notification bell and be informed every time we publish new live streams, product reviews, and so on. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. You can bookmark AV Forums for the latest reviews, news, and video. And of course, leave us a 5-star rating on whichever podcast service you use. If it allows you to leave us a rating, then please do. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you again next week.